This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet world, West Alabama. How we doing? This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. I am Joe Gaither. Shocker. Yes, you're watching us all on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. We appreciate everybody who's watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, or everybody who is joining us on their favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon. The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. We've had a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks, getting ready, inching closer to Alabama, kicking it off against Western Kentucky, and we are now 9 days away from Alabama opening up this season against Western Kentucky right there on Saban Field and Bryant-Denny Stadium. We invite you guys to jump in and join us on the show today as we are going to talk about Alabama football as fall camp is wrapping up really today and tomorrow. Game week gets going this weekend. Alabama's going to start preparing for Western Kentucky this weekend, per head coach Kalen DeBoer. We heard from him earlier in the afternoon. You can check out his press conference right there on the BamaCentral YouTube channel as well. But we're going to talk about the SEC's tiebreakers today. SEC announced its SEC championship game tiebreakers, and I think that Alabama and all the other powers that be in the conference, the big boys, the contenders, are going to have a real problem at the end of the year. We'll talk about Nealon Hibbett just a moment. Tampering. Did Alabama tamper with Graham Nicholson? We'll talk about Courtney Morgan, and we'll see what else is left on the table for today. But before we get into the show, we want to jump in and tell you about our friends, Purple Turtle Roofing. They are the most reliable residential roofing replacement company in Alabama and Mississippi. Whether it's addressing leaks, storm damage, or general wear and tear, Purple Turtle Roofing is going to be there to deliver exceptional roof repair for your property. Purple Turtle Roofing is the leading expert in local residential roofing solutions, specializing in providing unparalleled service and quality craftsmanship for all your roof replacement needs. Call Dustin Foley today at 877-PT-ROOF-5 for your free roof inspection. That's 877-787-6635 to schedule your free roof inspection today. Visit them online at www.roofturtle.com. We had a lot of storms in the Alabama, southeastern, West Alabama area over the last weekend, so you want to make sure you're ready for the next storm by calling Purple Turtle Roofing, 877-787-6635. Thanks so much, Dustin Foley, for sponsoring the program. We appreciate him doing that. You can contact me at Joe Gaither6 if you want to sponsor the program. But I want to start talking today. All right, let's start with tampering, and then we'll get into tiebreakers, because the tiebreakers are going to be really, really complicated to work our way through. Let's start with tampering. We wake up today, we get our day going, you had your coffee, you're probably sending your son or daughter off to college, off to school. UA started its second day today. UA, its first day of classes was yesterday. So everything's getting going today, and you're seeing on your Twitter feeds, you're seeing on your social media feeds, the Miami of Ohio coach. It's Chuck Martin, right? Miami of Ohio coach. I wrote it earlier. Yeah, Chuck Martin. Chuck Martin is doing a very short video interview on our social media machines, and you can see it at Joe Gaither6 if you want to see his clip for yourself, or you can read about it at BamaCentral.com, Alabama Crimson Tide on SI. And he says, what does he say? He says, our kicker was stolen. The interviewer says, well, coach, you lost your kicker this past year. And he said, no, we didn't lose him. We know where he is. What? He said, we know where he is. Alabama stole our kicker. Oh, okay, coach. Yeah, we didn't lose him. He's at Alabama. We know exactly where he's at. You media people, it's all pretend is what he said. No, Alabama stole our kicker. They illegally recruited our kicker and stole him from us. That's a fact. We act like it's, we live in a la-la world, like, hey, let's not talk about reality. I don't know why everybody knows what's going on. Yeah, Alabama stole our kicker, and a couple other schools tried to steal him. All right, so look, you guys know Will Reichert really put all your kicking woes to bed. Look, we experienced the highs and lows from the kicker position in the Nick Saban era. You had lots of below average kickers and a bunch of kicking nightmares, whether it be the kick six game, whether it be 2017, he can't kick a field goal down in Auburn, whether it be, oh goodness gracious, whether it be, 6-3, 9-3, whatever it was, the LSU game, you missed how many field goals over at Bryant Denny Stadium. You've seen the worst of it. You've seen the worst part of the field goals, but you've also seen some really high highs. Jeremy Shelley later on in that same 2011 national title game, right? You beat LSU on what? How many field goals did he kick? 5 in that game. And then, of course, we all think about Will Reichert, the NCAA's all-time leading scoring leader. Now, Will Reichert off to the Minnesota Vikings. He is the new man on the Minnesota Vikings. 6th-round draft pick, and as my now divisional rival as a Chicago Bears fan, I mean, never going to pull against a Bama guy, but hopefully he gets traded, does something else for a different program. But Alabama had to make a move. Alabama looked around. They saw Connor Talty, redshirt freshman from Chicago, and I think Kalen DeBoer basically said, we'd like to upgrade this position if possible. Well, the Luke Rosa Award winner, Graham Nicholson, goes in the transfer portal last year, making 27 of his 28 field goals, converting 35 of his 37 extra points. He's 60 of 71 all-time in field goals and 97 of 104 on extra points. And the Miami of Ohio coach did not like the fact that he transferred to Alabama. This was a very short clip. That was the extent of it. We didn't lose him. He's at Alabama. Alabama stole our kicker. Well, Kalen DeBoer was asked about it right off the bat. The very, very, very first question from our friend Tony Sakalis. He says, "Hey, coach, they've accused you of tampering. Do you have any response to this?" And Kalen DeBoer's quote is as follows: "I don't know anything about that, I guess." That comment, yeah, he entered the portal and we reached out to him. So that's how it goes, right? We did everything that we're supposed to do. Okay, so do you believe Coach DeBoer? Do you believe Chuck Martin? Do you even care about it? Do you care about tampering? Let's kind of take it from a couple different angles. Let's take it from Graham Nicholson's angle. Graham Nicholson, you're at Miami of Ohio. You just finished your 3rd year. You've kicked very, very well. You've won the Lou Groza Award as the best kicker in college football. And always feel free to comment at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube if you agree, disagree, or have any other insight on this topic. But Graham Nicholson, you've finished your year. You won the Lou Groza Award, and it is transfer portal season. It's NIL season. Everybody knows this is a part of college football now. And look, you can say, okay, we've developed him at Miami of Ohio, but kicking is a premium position. It's a premium position that doesn't always get thought about. Everybody thinks about quarterback, left tackle, defensive end, cornerback. You think about these, marquee positions, right? But kicker, goodness gracious, maybe the Alabama fan has forgotten. Hopefully you haven't, but maybe maybe the Alabama fan has forgotten how important kickers are. Will Reichert really settled a lot of those ghosts, or settled a lot of those bad feelings about place kickers, but that's because he was so good. He was so reliable. And Alabama really was able to run away with games or stretch out games because of Will Reichert. Obviously, the talent around Will Reichert was very, very good, and not many games. I can't think of many games where he was called upon to kick a game-winning field goal. But obviously, out there in Texas, you kick the game winner 2 years ago. In what, 2022? Yeah, 2022. Out there in Texas, he kicks a game-winning field goal. So look, it's a very important position, and because it's a very important position, and Graham Nicholson is last spring the best kicker in college football and still has a year of eligibility left to go. And look, none of these kickers are going to the pros early. None of these kickers are going to the NFL early. Will Reichert, he spent 5 years, and praise the Lord that he did. He spent 5 years here in Tuscaloosa because that's the nature of the beast, that kickers don't go into the NFL very early. Don't go into the NFL early. You don't have to do that. And very, very, I can't think of a one that would. But Graham Nicholson, you're sitting there. I've just finished my season at Miami of Ohio. Of course, I can stay here. And I'm sure that there is an NIL stipend or NIL package for Miami of Ohio for the Red Hawks. I'm sure. Ben Roethlisberger probably funneling money right into the Miami of Ohio program. I'm kidding, but he's the most prominent football player alum that I can think of from Miami of Ohio. But look, let's be honest. Is whatever Graham Nicholson was capable of making at Miami of Ohio more than whatever he's making here in Tuscaloosa? Or let's just take Tuscaloosa out of it, but make it a big brand program. Make it Georgia, Florida, Texas, Ohio State, USC, Clemson, one of these programs that looks themselves in the mirror every morning and says, oh, we're going to go get a national championship. If you're one of those programs, you've got to go get a premier kicker. You got to have a kicker. And yes, Alabama does have Connor Talty sitting right there on scholarship, redshirt freshman from last season, right out of Chicago. And I think that they think that Connor Talty, I think the program views Connor Talty as a future. But why risk it? Why put Connor Talty out there when the transfer portal is available and you have scholarship places? You have scholarship spots available. Look, you weren't going into the transfer portal to look for a starting quarterback. You weren't going into the transfer portal to look for a starting left tackle. I mean, I guess you were with Caden Proctor, getting him back from Iowa. But look, from an Alabama perspective, you say, I can play Connor Talty and we don't really know that much about him, or I can go out into the transfer portal and try to get a kicker that's been doing it at a high level on the college level and has experience. Okay, why? That's money well spent. So Graham Nicholson, you think about himself, and he's like, okay, am I going to stay at Miami of Ohio? Or am I going to, I just won the Lou Groza Award, am I going to cash in? Let's think about what I just said about the NFL. There's only 32 place kickers in the NFL. You guys all know I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Basically, Carlos Santos is the only kicker on the team. You got Torrey Taylor punting, but the specialists are few and far between. It's one of the main reasons why Will Reichert came back to school. We all remember Nick Saban really praising Will Reichert, saying Will Reichert is the reason that NIL is good. He can come back to school for his fifth year, obviously last year, for his COVID, his super senior year. He can come back to school, and the NIL will make it worth it for him instead of going to the NFL and getting churned in and out quickly. Look, if you are not one of the 32 best kickers in the NFL, if you're not one of the 32 best kickers, you don't have a job. You are sitting on the sidelines waiting on a call, waiting on somebody to strain a hamstring, strain a calf, something, some sort of an injury. And I don't want to have any injuries, so that's what the knocking on wood is for. But Will Reichert last year, let's say he doesn't come back. Will Reichert goes into the NFL and doesn't get drafted. I mean, my man was a 6th-round draft pick. It's not like he was an early draft pick. And look, if you're not paying attention to the NFL, you're not getting drafted that much anyways from the special teams places. 6th, 7th round, that's about where you're going to get drafted at. Let's say Will Reichert made the decision to not come back to school. There was a point last year where he was like, okay, I'm going to go on to play in the NFL, and then he changed his mind. If he had gone to the NFL, gone to a camp, and not been the best kicker there, he'd be out of a job, right? And then the NIL that he earned last year at Alabama wouldn't be in his pocket. And that year of experience that he put on tape, that year of experience in the Malmore Athletic Facility, in the weight room, that year of experience in a high-level program led him to getting drafted. So all that's to say is, Graham Nicholson, you got to make a decision for yourself. You had to make a decision for yourself in the spring. Do I stay at Miami of Ohio, where I would probably have gotten a small NIL deal, and of course I could still, kick a bunch of field goals, and, the NFL will find you. The NFL will find the best players, but it is easier to be found when you're playing on national TV every week. It is easier to be seen when NFL scouts are in your facilities each and every week. Look, this is not Alabama bias or homerism, but there are NFL scouts in the Malmore Athletic Facility pretty much every single week. Maybe a different team every week and maybe a different scout every week, but there are scouts in and out the Malmore Athletic Facility pretty much weekly. And so I don't want to make this specifically about Alabama, but for Graham Nicholson, this is a business decision that you have to make. You got to hit the transfer portal, and whether it's Alabama or any other big brand program, you take it. And so Chuck Martin, Alabama stole our kicker. Chuck Martin, go look in the mirror, my man. You're Miami of Ohio. You are Miami of Ohio. I'm sure that no one's more familiar with your NIL budget than you are. No one's more familiar than what your players are making off the field and on the field than you are. And I understand there's a semblance of, I developed that kid, I should benefit from his senior year. I understand that. But this is the game we're playing now. And I know some people don't like it, and feel free. If you don't like it, it's okay. That's your prerogative. But this is the game we're playing now. And so Graham Nicholson, it's a business decision, whether he's tampered with or not. And at the moment, according to Chase Goodbread of the Tuscaloosa News, Miami of Ohio has not submitted a formal inquiry or submitted a former tampering charge to the NCAA against Alabama. So whether he's tampered with or not, don't you think that Graham Nicholson, the second he won the Lou Groza Award, thought about, what are my next opportunities? How do I maximize my last year of college? Do I stay here at Miami of Ohio? Or do I try to hit the transfer portal and make a lot of money in the NIL world? I have no idea what kind of an NIL package Alabama put together for Graham Nicholson. But you would be a fool to assume that package was zero. Okay? So there was some sort of package. There's got to be. It's just a smart business decision. And for Kalen DeBoer, this is the right response. This is the exact right response. We did everything the right way. He jumps in the transfer portal. We wanted him. We contacted him. And there we go. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, I guess, that comment. Yeah, he entered the portal and we reached out to him. So that's how it goes. We did everything that we're supposed to do. Now, I do think there is a small element of Kalen DeBoer being separated from the minutia of the day-to-day recruiting. I think there's a little bit of a small element of him being separated. That's what Courtney Morgan, that's his value. His value is that he can take on that load and say, hey, Kalen DeBoer, I've got these 15 players that we're really zeroing in on. Here's what you need to know about them. I think that there's a small element of, okay, this is absolutely Kalen DeBoer's truth. I don't know anything about that, I guess, that comment. Yeah, he entered the portal. We reached out to him. So that's how it goes, right? We did everything we're supposed to do. From DeBoer's standpoint, from the kind of CEO look, why would he know about tampering if it did happen, right? Why would that be a part of the report? Yeah, coach, we had some NCAA violations, but we got your kicker. What? No. So no, I don't think that Alabama tampered, but I'm not going to be foolish enough to assume that Alabama didn't. But let's be honest with ourselves. Think about everybody that Alabama lost in the spring transfer portal window. And we've gone on over it a bunch of different times, the transfer portal window. Alabama's lost 15 to 25 different guys basically every year since the transfer portal started. How many of those guys got tampered with? I'm not even going to guess. I'm not going to even try to guess because I don't want to put out some sort of a one guy, 20 guys. I don't want to send anybody scurrying. But I think it'd be foolish to assume that no one got tampered with. Let's just think about this past class. You got Caleb Downs going to Ohio State. You got Trey Amos going to Ole Miss. Caden Proctor went to Iowa and back. And Caden Proctor admitted it. He basically told a TV station up in Iowa that, when I was struggling in the SEC, the Iowa coaches texted me and said, hey, keep your head up. We're thinking about you. And let's be perfectly honest with ourselves. That's tampering. Iowa, that's tampering. And so whether it was Caleb Downs going to Ohio State or Trey Amos going to Ole Miss or Caden Proctor going to Iowa and then returning, and let's be even more honest with ourselves. Caden Proctor decides, I'm not having a good time at Iowa. I think I want to come back. How does Kalen DeBoer, how does the coaching staff get around some of the tampering rules, some of the contact rules with Caden Proctor? Well, Caden Proctor calls his buddy Wilkin Formby, and Wilkin Formby is talking on speakerphone like, no, they were at the beach. That's right. They were at the beach on spring break. That's the story. They're at the beach on spring break, hanging out together, and Thornby calls the coaching staff, hey, if Caden Proctor wanted to come back, maybe what would that look like? And he was able to hear the conversation as a third party. So, let's not pretend like Alabama's completely innocent. But this is the game we're playing now. So, Chuck Martin, sorry, bud. Welcome to life as the head coach of Miami of Ohio. And for Graham Nicholson, look, you don't fault him one bit. You go into the transfer portal, you got 1 year of eligibility left. You go kick on the SEC stage for a national championship contender, and boom, you go off into the NFL. And you hopefully score yourself some NIL points, NIL dollars over these 10, 12, 11 months or so. And all is well that ends well. Alabama's kicking woes don't rear their ugly heads. And everything works out. So a lot of salt from the Miami of Ohio crew and denials from the Alabama crew. And I'll just ask you, do you have a problem with maybe the potential that Alabama tampered with Graham Nicholson? Look, I'm not going to say they did or didn't because I don't know. But I think that Kalen DeBoer told the truth today. I do think that Kalen DeBoer told the truth by saying, I don't know anything about that comment about stealing Graham Nicholson, about tampering. I think he told the truth today. I do. I think that's one thing about Kalen DeBoer that I really, really like is I've noticed over these, 5 months that while I haven't found his press conferences to be overly interesting, I don't think he's really the type to give the spin doctor. I don't really think that he's the type to, one thing about Coach Saban is we always said, oh, well, Coach is talking to his team through the media. You always used to rip the media, and that's fine. Rip us. Hey, okay, bring it on. But Coach would always talking to his team through the media. I don't know that Kalen DeBoer necessarily does that. And so I think that he did tell the truth today about Graham Nicholson and his recruitment. I think that Alabama came out ahead, obviously. And look, it's tough for you guys at Miami of Ohio. You lost your Lou Groza award-winning kicker. But look yourself in the mirror and realize, Miami of Ohio, you're not playing Power 4 football. You're not going to the college football playoff this year. You are a feeder program. That's the way that college football is now. You a small school? Are you a linebacker at South Alabama named Khalil Jacobs and you're having a good season? Well, you're going to go in the transfer portal and shop yourself to Alabama, Ole Miss, and Missouri and end up at Missouri. Congratulations. Sorry, South Alabama, you lost a great linebacker. But this is the game now. You play well at smaller levels, you move up, and then you move up again to the NFL. Everyone's trying to get themselves to bigger stages. Let's be honest with ourselves. I'd love to be on bigger stages. I love the stage that I'm on right here on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, but everyone in their lives are looking to get to bigger stages. Whatever job you're working in right now, I'm sure you'd love to get yourself a little more responsibility, a little more notoriety, and a little more recognition. And I hope for you and your sake that you get that. So Chuck Martin kind of sounded a little bit salty today, kind of gave off bitterness to his reporter talking about Alabama stole, they tampered with. All right, man. If that's the case, go file a grievance. Go file a grievance with the NCAA. Go take Kalen DeBoer to court in quotations. But otherwise, quit your crying because this is just the way the game is played at this point. All right, so that's the easy part. Let's talk about maybe. Hey, as my dog gets into whatever she's getting into, let's talk about tiebreakers. Because yesterday, actually, before we tell you about tiebreakers, I need to tell you about Druid City Music Hall. Druid City Music Hall is the premier place for live music on the Strip. They've got a huge kaleidoscope concert series that got started last night. Druid City Music Hall right next to Waffle House. So, look, go to the concert, get you some Waffle House right across the street from Houndstooth and from I think it's Hot Walks Express, the hot yoga spot right there on the Strip. But you've got the premier place for live music on the Strip. A very clean interior, great stage, nice little pit, great sound, 2 big old bars if you're interested in that side of things, big, clean bathrooms to take a break from the concert. So I love Druid City Music Hall. I love the fact that they are part of the Joe Gaither show. Tonight, you're going to see Tucker Wetmore. Tucker Wetmore's performing down there on the Strip. And on Friday, you've got Knox, a young man named Knox. All these concerts start about 8 o'clock. It's the premier place for live music in Tuscaloosa, really outside of the Tuscaloosa amphitheater. I talked about it on Tuesday. These are the artists that are the up-and-comers. And so you guys want to see some young up-and-coming artists before they make it big, you need to see Druid City Music Hall. You can find their shows at druidcitymusichall.com/shows. You can get their tickets right there, or just walk right up to Will Call right there on the Strip in between your in between your All-Star breakfast. Go get yourself some tickets for an upcoming show. Lots of shows. I think they got 25 shows listed right now for the entire fall semester. There's going to be music pretty much every week over at Druid City Music Hall, and we appreciate them being a part of the program. Let's talk about tiebreakers because, goodness gracious, the SEC has backed themselves into a little bit of a corner, or a lot of bit of a corner, in my opinion. Now, granted, look, this could all turn out to be nothing, but I'm looking ahead to December, and I'm starting to get nervous on your behalf. If Alabama gets left out, I'll be okay. I will be. It'll be no problem. My life will go on. I'll just keep covering the next thing, right? But I know there's going to be a lot of upset people here in the West Alabama area, in the Tuscaloosa area. A lot of my friends who are diehards, who are living and dying with every single piece of news. So I think there's trouble on the horizon. And not just for Alabama fans, but for a lot of the big brand contending SEC teams. The SEC, we all know, we welcomed Oklahoma and Texas. Great. Welcome, guys, to blue blood brands, Texas and Oklahoma. We demolished the divisions because we couldn't figure out how to bring Texas and Oklahoma into the league without jacking up divisions. Just send Auburn and who? Send Auburn and Alabama? Send Auburn to the SEC East? Come on, you could have figured it out, the divisions, but you didn't. That's okay. All right. No more divisions, one big 16-team league, and the top two teams go to the SEC championship game. In theory, oh man, that sounds like a blast. Sounds like a blast, because we think about how many times the SEC West over the last decade has really been exceptional, where the SEC East has been maybe not as exceptional, but same thing. You think back to the early 2000s, it was the same thing, but in reverse. The SEC East was very strong, right? Yeah, the Tim Tebow Florida years and the early Mark Richt years a little bit right there. The SEC East was strong for a point. The point is, there's always been one side of the conference that's been stronger than the other. And so sometimes you've had conference championship games where the other side representative isn't as good or doesn't necessarily belong in the championship game. I think back to automatically to 2017, Alabama loses to Auburn. Auburn goes to the SEC championship game. Now, Georgia was on the other side, and Georgia definitely deserved to be there. But man, how many times the SEC West, think back to 2010, 2011, you got the LSU Alabama. It's the two top 5 teams in the country. Now they ultimately ended up playing for the BCS championship, but how many times you've had one division much stronger than the other? Okay, so I understand it. We dissolve divisions. But I think you got a real problem because our schedules are not balanced. You're not playing a balanced schedule. Not everybody's playing everyone. Obviously, the numbers don't work out with just 8 conference games. You have 8 other opponents that you can't play. Well, 7 other opponents, right? 7 other opponents that you cannot play. Just make sure that my math is right. You're playing 8 games, and the top 2 teams are going to go to Atlanta, and that's great. And Alabama fans are all thinking that Kalen DeBoer is basically going to keep up right where Nick Saban left off, and Alabama's going to be in the SEC championship game. And I can easily scroll through the Alabama schedule and think the same thing. Oh, it's a win, it's a win, it's a win, it's a win. I think Alabama's going to look at a 9-3 at the worst, 11-1 at the best. I think you got a really high target this year. 11-1, not unrealistic. 9-3, worst case scenario. Ooh, hopefully Tuscaloosa doesn't burn down for a 9-3. But let's just play it right there in the middle and say 10-2. And I'm going to start putting up this, right there. I got myself just a little hypothetical, if you're watching us on the BamaCentral YouTube channel, where I have basically, and this is not a prediction, this is just a sketch of what could happen. You look at it right here. I've got 7 different schedules, 7 different SEC teams and their schedules displayed, and really with records predicting them. And I've got one team at 7-1, the Texas Longhorns. Okay, great. They are going to the SEC championship game. They're in Atlanta. Good job, Texas. You made it. Woohoo! Right? Look at these other 5 schedules, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at the other 6 schedules, right? This is going to be a huge problem because these other 6 teams, Georgia, Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, Ole Miss, LSU, I've got them all listed at 6-2. Okay, 6-2. Who goes? Who goes to the SEC championship game if it's 6-2? Let's start scrolling through this because you've got 22 pages of tiebreakers. 22 pages of tiebreakers. Okay, it says the first tiebreaker here is really easy. There we go. Here we go. Oh. I'm trying to get this to where I can see both pages at once. Oh, great. You're not going to work for me, are you? Yeah, here we go. All right. The first tiebreaker is really easy. Head-to-head competition amongst the tied teams. Well, how do you determine between all 6 teams who's head-to-head? Georgia loses to Alabama in my sheet. Alabama loses to Tennessee in my sheet. Missouri loses to Alabama on my sheet. Tennessee loses to Georgia on my sheet. Ole Miss loses to Georgia on my sheet. LSU loses to Texas A&M and Oklahoma on my sheet. Like, you don't have enough crossover here. You don't have enough crossover going on, right? And so number B, record versus all common conference opponents amongst the tied teams. So we've got to pick out amongst these eight games, what are the common opponents that all 6 teams share? Well, Georgia's playing Kentucky, but Alabama isn't. Georgia's playing Alabama, but Ole Miss isn't. Georgia's playing Auburn, but who isn't? Let's see. Auburn, Tennessee isn't. Okay, Georgia's playing Mississippi State, but Alabama is not. Georgia's playing Texas, but Alabama is not. Georgia's playing Florida, but Alabama is not. We just hit Ole Miss, right? And Georgia's playing Tennessee. Who's not playing Tennessee? Missouri. Missouri's not playing Tennessee. So the only game on this list that I can use, none of them for the Georgia, none of them. So, okay, we're automatically on to number C. Record against the highest place common conference opponent in the conference standings and proceeding through the conference standings amongst the tied teams. Like, this is not going to make any sense, because then what is this? We are taking the 7th place team. Who's got the best records against the 7th place team? Is that how I'm reading this? Cumulative conference record against the highest place common conference opponent in the conference standing. So yeah, you'd have to find out who's 7th, and then you'd have to determine your best record against the 7th place team amongst these other 6. Well, then you're still looking at the uncommon opponents. You're not having enough teams play that 7th place team, right? Okay, number D, the cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents amongst the tied teams. Okay, this is probably where you're going to find your winner, right? Because the cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents among the tied teams. So, how do we take this? Okay, you basically take the winning percentage of all your 8 schools that are on your list, and there's your next tiebreaker. And at that point, you're determined, did I draw Texas or did I draw Oklahoma? Did I draw Alabama or did I draw Georgia? Right? Did I draw Tennessee or did I draw LSU? Like, you're going to be – I think this is probably where you're going to find your winner. Number D, the cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents amongst the tied teams. I think that's where you're going to find your winner. But my goodness. Now that we have found our tiebreaker, number D, for this scenario, how upset are you? You're Alabama, and Vanderbilt is on your schedule. Oh, my gosh, Vanderbilt. How many games is Vanderbilt going to win this year? 2, maybe, right? Granted, the Vanderbilt's also on Missouri's schedule, but they are not on the Georgia schedule. Okay, they are on the LSU schedule. Let's see. They are not on the Ole Miss schedule. All right, so boom, that's going to eliminate Alabama, Missouri, and Tennessee, hypothetically. You're going to go Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU, and then you start looking at some of these worst schools. Who's got the worst team, right? It's going to be really bad, man. This is going to be really, really bad. You're going to have a lot of upset feelings. Now, will I be here for it just for the chaos factor? You're absolutely right. The chaos factor is going to be at an all-time high. Imagine you're an LSU fan. Imagine you're a Georgia fan. Imagine you're an Alabama fan. You're watching this right here, and your team gets left out because, we went 6-2. We played well. Two of our hard games we lost, but we beat a couple of really good teams as well. It's going to be a madhouse. It's going to be a problem. Wendell Hare chimes in on Facebook. Wait until teams play each other multiple times in the same year, especially from the same conference. With this 12-team playoff, top conference teams could face off in the regular season, conference championship, and possibly playoffs. You're absolutely right, but I don't know that's – I think I'd much rather have that be a problem than have Alabama finish 6-2 amongst this other group, right, and be left out of the SEC championship game. Granted, does the SEC championship really matter? There's an argument to be made that it doesn't, but there's a little bit of pride aspect that it does. You win the SEC championship game, you are an automatic qualifier. You're one of the 4 teams automatically qualified for the playoff. You get your bye, right? And so there is a huge pride factor about the SEC championship game mattering. Maybe there's a good argument to finish third in the SEC. Finish third in the SEC. Don't go to Atlanta. You get a week's worth of rest. Right? You don't have to play a top-tier opponent. You don't have to play a top-tier team. You get a week's worth of rest and probably end up with a 5 or 6 seed in the college football playoff with a weaker opponent, 11 or 12 seed, and you're playing at home in December and then matched up against one of the weaker top 4 seeds, the 3 or the 4 seed in the next round. So, look, it may not matter. The schedule may work itself out. You may only have 2 teams at the end of the year at the top of the standings. And if there are 2 teams tied for first, well, boom, it's easy. Those are the 2 teams that go to Atlanta. But this is a huge problem because imagine you're Missouri, right? Oh, we went to the Cotton Bowl this past year. We beat Ohio State. We got all these expectations, and okay, we go 6-2 in the league, but we go undefeated elsewhere. We lost at A&M and we lost at Alabama, but we beat our big rival Oklahoma. We had a great year. Oh, but it wasn't good enough. You are tied for second, but get left out of the SEC championship game. Now, those Missouri fans may not care as much, but if you're an LSU fan and you've been drinking all your those folks like to turn up, and that's A-okay. All year long, you've been turning up watching your LSU Tigers, and you finish 6-2, and you're like, oh, it's Brian Kelly. He's getting us right on track. We're on track. The defense looks better. We're 1 year removed from losing a Heisman Trophy quarterback. But you're 6-2, and you're left at home in favor of Alabama, in favor of Georgia. Oh, my gosh. Look, I don't really believe that Bama bias is a thing. I know I hear a lot of Alabama fans say, oh, everybody's biased against us. And then I see a lot of Alabama haters. Oh, everybody's biased to get Nick Saban, Alabama, and their brand in. I don't know that Bama bias exists. I think there's enough balance on both sides to where it doesn't. But can you imagine the outcry if Alabama wins that tiebreaker? The outcry that it's Alabama and Texas, it's Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship game because of a tiebreaker. Oh, Birmingham office showing Alabama favoritism again. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so loud. And I don't want to hear that. I don't want to be dealing with that. That is not what I want to be, how I want to be spending my time fighting off the narrative that, oh, Alabama gets special treatment. You're Ole Miss. Think about it. You're Ole Miss. You've got Jackson Dart coming back. Everything's coming together. You love Lane Kiffin. You don't have Alabama on your schedule this year. Everything's lining up for you to have a special year. Oh, you dropped 2 games against tough opponents, but you win the rest of them. You're 6-2. You're 10-2 overall, but you're left out of the SEC championship game. Now, maybe I'm making too big of a deal of this. Maybe the fans won't care. Maybe they will be forward-facing and say the only thing that matters is their place in the college football playoff. The only thing that matters is getting to the finals and winning a national championship game. Who cares about an SEC title? But I think it is going to be a huge problem. I think it's going to be something that needs to get solved sooner rather than later. And the very first way that you can solve it is by bumping us to 9 games. You bump us to 9 games and you start to make the SEC schedule a little more balanced. Not that it is unbalanced right now. Not that you make the schedule a little more balanced. You bump it up by 9 games, and that odd number, instead of playing 8, that odd number creates a little more jump, and you won't have as many people tied, in my opinion. So let's get to 9 games as soon as possible, Greg Sankey, so that we can avoid any problems in the various fan bases. All right, let's see. That's tiebreakers. That's tampering. Let's talk about Courtney Morgan really quickly. Before we do tell you about Courtney Morgan, I want to tell you about my friend Derek Daniel at State Farm. Derek Daniel is your premier place for insurance in town. You need home, life, and auto insurance. He will take care of you. If you want to just call and complain about the Braves, you can do that too. 205-758-3391. Derek Daniel, one of the biggest Braves fans I know, is really suffering through it. I know you are as well. So if you want to talk some insurance, talk some Braves, call him 205-758-3391. They can get you a very quick auto insurance quote. Make sure that your rates are right. Make sure that your coverages are right. Look, it is that time. We just talked about it. School is back. School started 2 days ago here in town. You know, all the drivers from Illinois, from California, from New York, from Florida, from everywhere in the country that's not Tuscaloosa converges on Tuscaloosa and makes it a very, very challenging place to drive. Because of that, you want to make sure that your auto insurance is right. Call them at 205-758-3391. They can get you a quick quote on your auto insurance. They can make sure that you're prepped for your semester with renter's insurance. And if you don't have a kid or that's not your game, they can make sure that you have a home, life, boat, renters, everything. Basically anything insurance-wise, Derek Daniel can get you taken care of at State Farm. Call them today at 205-758-3391. We'll get out of here for the day by closing with Courtney Morgan. Courtney Morgan signs a new 3-year extension and gets basically a $300,000 raise. He's up to, $850, $825, $875, right in that range per year as the general manager, as Alabama's general manager. And I kind of hit on it a little bit at the very beginning when I was talking about tampering. I think that Courtney Morgan, this is a huge deal. This is a huge, huge, huge deal. One thing that I've noticed about Kalen DeBoer over these 6-7 months is that I think he's very singular focused. I think he's very focused on what happens on the field, football. How can I scheme plays? How can I put Jalen Milroe? How can I put Justice Haynes? How can I get guys open? How can I make people, how can I make this program flourish? And I think that he knows that his specialty is I can scheme up plays. I can get guys open. I can basically handle the football side very, very well. And I think he's a very nice man. I do think he's a very nice man. But I think that he's very smart in his relationship with Courtney Morgan. I think Courtney Morgan, as general manager, basically oversees the entire recruiting department. Now, I think that they're hand in hand. I think they have a lot of meetings, and I think that Kalen DeBoer is very involved. But as far as what decisions get made, where are we going to eat on the recruiting visits, who's getting called, what day works for Billy, what day works for Johnny, will Johnny's parents come to town, can we talk to this coach or that coach? I think Courtney Morgan handles a lot of the day-to-day, a lot of the logistical work, a lot of the work that would bog down a coach. And Courtney Morgan gets hired, comes down from Washington with Kalen DeBoer, and he was very complimentary of Courtney Morgan again today. Basically, that Courtney Morgan empowers his staff. He knows the lay of the land. I think that Courtney Morgan is basically doing a lot of the talent evaluation, he and his staff, and they are saying, "Hey, Coach DeBoer, watch this kid. I like him." And Coach DeBoer, "Yeah, I like him too." Boom, you're on the radar. I think Coach Saban watched a lot of that tape himself. I think, I don't want to say micromanager, but we all know that Coach Saban had his hands on everything. I think that Coach Saban watched a lot of that tape himself. I think that this is an area that is passed off to Courtney Morgan that allows Kalen DeBoer to coach at a very, very high level, because he's just worried about, oh, Courtney Morgan, you're bringing in Billy. Billy's this. I saw his tape. Oh, yeah, I think it allows him to focus more on the relationship building and less on the minutia that is recruiting, that sometimes becomes recruiting of, well, let's watch another tape. Let's take another call. Let's send another email. I think that if you simplify things for coach, like, hey, coach, is it 30 guys we're recruiting? Tonight after practice, obviously they've got their windows where they can contact players. Tonight after practice, you're going to call Billy, Steven, and Johnny. Great, cool. Instead of all of those decisions that you're making yourself. I think Coach Saban made a lot of those decisions himself. And I think that Courtney Morgan takes a lot of that weight off of Kalen DeBoer. And it's huge to hire him to an extension, because I know that USC, and it has now been reported that USC was after him, and USC offered him $1 million a year. $825 in Tuscaloosa or $1 million in Los Angeles? You be the judge. I am not a financial expert, but surely you can put 2 and 2 together. Where does your dollar go further? Obviously, the dollar is a huge topic on everybody's mouth because of just the way the economy's gone. But where does your dollar go further? Right here in Tuscaloosa, not in Los Angeles. So it's very, very big for Alabama to keep Courtney Morgan, give him a raise. I know a lot of other schools are coming after him because I think he makes it very, very easy for his head coach to focus on the football aspect of things. I think he handles a lot of the logistics and a lot of the day-to-day, and I think what he is doing for Alabama right now is invaluable. So to see him get that extension should give you, the Alabama fan, a lot of confidence in the direction of the program and the sustainability of the program. All right, we're going to get out of here for the day. I'm actually going to go to a high school football game. I'm going to go to Gordo. They're going to be playing Fayette right down the road from me. And then on Friday night, I am going to County High to watch County High and Central play. If you're interested in high school football, you can watch me on WVUA 23 Football Friday. Usually hit right about 11:05 on my segment, but I believe Gary Harris starts the show at 10:30, and we take it to 11:30. And we had a lot of fun covering West Alabama high school football. I really appreciate Gary Harris inviting me back as a short guest. That's a lot of fun and experience that I need in my career. And so thank you so much, Gary Harris, for inviting me to do that. That's where I will be tomorrow night. We will bring you another show tomorrow because we are pretty much we're right here in the season now. We are in the season. And it's time to start talking about Western Kentucky. I'm sick of talking about, here's what I'm hearing at camp. Here's what I saw in my 3 minutes at practice. We saw about 4 minutes of practice. Here's my big sweeping take. It feels so disingenuous to me. It feels so disingenuous, and I don't want to be disingenuous at all. When you listen to me, when you hear me, when you read me, I want you to know that, that's what Joe actually thinks. And so that's why some of the fall camp has been a little bit spotty as far as daily episodes, because I don't want to just spin bullshit. Sorry for the language right at the end, but I don't want to spin it. Spin the mess. We will talk about Western Kentucky coming up probably tomorrow. We need to dive into the Hilltoppers as it's about to be game week, and I cannot wait. Thank you so much for watching me on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching me on my own social media machines at Joe Gaither 6 on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. And thanks so much for subscribing to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon, your favorite podcast platforms. We'll be back to talk to you again tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.